The Ministry of Health has confirmed the first coronavirus case in Kenya.
At a time when the elderly appeared to be at the highest risk of COVID-19, school-going children across the world were suffering silently. They were bearing the brunt of the COVID-19.
We have suspended learning in all our education institutions with immediate effect. Primary and secondary day schools are to suspend operations from tomorrow. For those in boarding schools, the school administration is to ensure that students are home by Wednesday, the 18th March 2020.
Schools were shut. Classrooms became empty. School playgrounds silent as children had to stay at home. We visited one village in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, to get real stories of what was happening during the 9-month-long school closures. Children were directed to study virtually, away from the traditional classroom. This one move saw a huge exposure of the massive digital divide between the rich and the poor in Kenya. Those who could afford to learn virtually and those who could not. At Patmos Mutensuri, children were comfortably learning from home during school closures.
Thank you, Teacher Damaris.
Through the digital and electronic gadgets, children in this institution had already learned how to use tablets way ahead of COVID-19.
I want you to go there down. Has it opened?
Yes.
Let me have a look at one.
As if prepared for the pandemic. However, there were challenges.
You click only once, eh? Make sure that you click only once. Is it open? What has it given you? This loading, eh? Give it a downtime.
Just nearby, learners from poor homes could not afford to learn digitally due to economical constraints.
Tukaambiwa tutasomea online, ikawa tuiwakuwa na access ya internet na wase wengine hadi stima hawakuwa nazo.
All they had were their books and pens to help their parents with work and play with their mates.
Tulikuwa tunasaidia hadi madhe yangu fanya kazi kwa nyumba. Wase walikuwa na face vitu mingi sana. Hadi stima ilikuwa ngumu. Kama leo tunaweza pata stima, kesho tukose. Na simu tunaweza pata kani mbili. Moja inaweza enda na baba na moja tubaki nao home. Lakini watoto bado hadi hao wanaweza taka kufanyia kitu. Sasa mimi sikuwa napata hiyo time.
They also reported having experienced lots of difficulties out of school.
Na tena nikiwa kwa nyumba nasoma, nitasikia bado watoto wengine wakicheza nje na mimi niende nicheze nao. Singepata hiyo time. Wase wakuwa napata vitu poa za kufanyia job. Internet na ilikuwa shida. Wase wakuwa napata internet hadi uko mashinani. Wase watambu internet. Wewe mwenyewe ulikuwa unasikia unataka kusoma, ulikuwa na hiyo feeling ya kusoma, but uko unapata time. Na tulikuwa tunasaidiana na sizi yangu, but iko pali tu msee anaweza sema hakupata hiyo time ya kusoma. Na bado uko mtaani kuna venye tu vitu zenye unaweza sema wengine wanaweza expect na wewe uzipata. So ni tough sana.
Most of the pupils walikuwa wanazurura huku kote kwa vijiji. Unapata msichana, kama ni msichana amedanganya mamake ameenda kusomea kwa best yake. Unapata ameenda labda kuona maboy waseme wa high school wenye wana date. Unapata wanaongea huko, wanafanya hizi vitu wenye vijana siku hizi wanafanya. Wengine wana smoke, so unapata hiyo time ya kusoma hawana.
Alisema turudi chuo, vile tulirudi iko wasichana wengi wa kurudi, wengine wao walikuwa na ball. Hata tutasema tu ni wasichana tu chache tu walikuwa kwa class, boys ndio wale walikuwa wengi.
A news article by Reuters also highlighted the surge of pregnancies during school closures in parts of Kenya, and boys were also affected.
Boys ndio wale wasee wenye walikuwa makonda sana, hadi wengine ndio walikuwa nakupandisha gari ati muende Kawangware, hadi wasichana wengine hadi wanajifundisha kushona ndio uze hiyo kitu wapate pesa, watafute tu bundles wasome.
Hiyo online classes hazingeweza, watoto wengi hawangefanya hizo vitu, so that's why unapata hiyo time ya corona kulikuanga na mtoto amepata ball. Learning at home haiko safe juu wakiwa shule kuna teachers wanaweza, kuna kwanga na right security juu teacher atakuwa answerable about the people. Juu kama ni mzazi ametuma mtoto shule, obvious atakuwa na mtoto akipotea mwalimu anaweza kuwa answerable, lakini akiwa home mtoto anaweza toroka na mzazi akose kujua mahali mtoto ameenda.
We also came across a teacher that facilitated digital learning during school closures. He termed his experiences very challenging.
The first experience I had with the virtual learning with my students was actually not as good as it could be, because that is when the students were learning about those platforms like Zoom. We spent much of the time trying to figure out if we can see each other, if we can hear each other, and then that's like a whole 30 minutes before you even get to teach. And when teaching, it was a little bit difficult. So I could say the first lesson was not as effective, but over time it became a bit easier, though there were some few challenges. For example, like teaching my subject, some concepts are better explained when you use like diagrams or maps. Now, having maps on Zoom at that time was not easy because the presentation part of it was a little bit challenging. We were not yet familiar with it. It was hard for me to explain such diagrams or to show such diagrams. I had to maybe refer them later. When we finish this class, just go find out what this map is like or what this diagram is like, what it means, so that we can recap later. So yeah, teaching such things that require visual learning at that particular point was very hard. The poor kids, I think, have a very rough time adjusting to the whole of this situation, because one, if you think about it, they usually lack fees, especially for high school, which I teach. Now imagine if you can't afford the school fees or you can't afford the books, then affording a digital phone or a digital maybe laptop to use during the virtual learning can be a very tough experience. Their parents have to choose either to buy the digital phone or maybe to feed these kids.
We decided to consult with Patmos Motensuri's headmistress on how the school had managed to ensure digital learning.
Digital learning in this institution started in the year 2018. It was fully implemented in the year 2019. We have been working on digital learning since the year 2019 fully in all learning areas and in all levels in our school. In Patmos, the challenges that we have come across is especially the internet.
Digital learning is the use of electronic media to impart knowledge. That can be smartphones, computers, and internet. Internet is expensive in this country, and then again unstable. You will find that most parents cannot afford these gadgets like laptops and smartphones. So they end up choosing between providing for food and buying these gadgets, which are expensive.
We sought to know the status of teachers on matters digital teaching and training in Kenya.
The teachers, the parents, and the pupils do not know how to effectively use laptops and smartphones. And to make it worse, they do not know how to use these platforms that are provided like Zoom. So they end up wasting a lot of time. For example, asking, can you hear me? Unmute yourself.
To reveal the dangers associated with digital learning, a local daily highlighted how intruders flooded a class session with pornography and threats, making the class unbearable. It further highlighted the sad state of affairs, quoting a legislator who said the only place online learning could be taking place is in urban areas where learners have access to internet connectivity, smartphones, laptops, and airtime. This resonated with data by UNICEF suggesting that 1 in every 3 children missed out on remote learning during school closures. Globally, it also showed that 72% of school-going children unable to access remote learning come from poor households. A separate study by Save the Children showed that 8 in every 10 Kenyan children believed they learnt nothing while at home. Further, 2/3 of children had no contact with teachers during school closures.
Kenya is not ready for full digital learning. Laptops and smartphones are not readily available, so that means not all students or parents can access it. Internet coverage and network is not stable. You cannot depend on that. Kenyan teachers are not trained for this digital learning, so it cannot be effective.
The truth is that we were not really prepared for it. But sometimes change is good, because when I look at the future, that is where we are headed.
Saying change is inevitable, the parent is calling on the government to help finance digital learning in Kenya to ensure success.
At the moment, it could be very expensive. I'm noting that we didn't have the tools and the equipment and the things that are necessary for that educational system. We don't have the laptop. We don't have those gadgets that are necessary for that. We don't have the MBs. We don't have the Wi-Fi's. So all those things now are making it very complicated and very expensive, and people can resist it. Because people don't have the gadget, very few people could access that. It cannot be told that it worked. The only thing we request is that the government should make sure also they put measures that will also help parents to align themselves with the change. That's what is necessary now. If we face it together, it is doable. Otherwise, but if it is just left the way it is at the moment, then it is bound to fail. Because the world is going digital, all the world is going digital. So if you are educating children with the analog, then it will be relevant. My feeling is that yes, there's a lot to be done. A lot has been done, but much more need to be done.
Teacher Damaris, however, has a different opinion.
Kenya is ready for the digital learning. Compare it to the way it began, because it started with a lot of force. And everyone is ready, because this is the easiest way of learning when you are teaching the learners. When you're teaching learners, you see the digital learning is a bit easy. The lifestyle that we have right now, everyone is getting digitalized in our nation.
Clearly, all Kenyan children, just like others, need to be equipped digitally.